Sorry for the inconvenience. And I request the Dr. Kiran Jairam sir to chair the meeting. If he's not available, we have a co-chair from Texas University. I request him to chair the meeting. Sir, Professor Ravindranath sir, please unmute your mic, sir. Hello.
Just 1 minute, Dr. Pedratea. Just 1 minute.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Dear friends, welcome to this session. It will be on Fulbright fellowships. There are a variety of fellowships, that are offered by the United States Educational Foundation, Hyderabad. And today, Miss Pranitha Hemanth will be giving a nice presentation on Fulbright and other Fulbright fellowship opportunities in the US. And since we have really, we started this meeting very late, without wasting any time, we'll go ahead and I request, Ms. Pranitha Hemanth to go ahead and give the presentation. We are very sorry, the meeting has started really late. And unfortunately, my colleague who is supposed to be chairing this session, we couldn't reach him because maybe he waited for some time. There have been delays, right? So now it is, here in the US, it's 12 o'clock night. And for him, he's in Florida, it's 1 o'clock there. So could I request, Ms. Monica Setia as well as Ms. Pranitha Hemanth to go ahead and start the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravindranath, for opening the session. And as you've mentioned, Pranitha and myself will be together doing the presentation today. Pranitha and myself, we handle the Fulbright programs in the Hyderabad region. So I think without much delay, as you rightly said, we will get started on the presentation, and we will be talking about the Fulbright, Nehru and Fulbright fellowship opportunities. I will go through the presentation first, and then Pranitha and myself together, we will answer the questions and answers that any audience members might have. And I hope that we have both students and faculty and research scholars who are attending the session, because it's of interest to everybody, this particular the session, because yesterday's was more geared towards students of the master's programs. But today's session is that will be of interest to everybody, including the current PhD students, any research scholars, postdocs, and faculty. So let's get started. I don't know if Pranitha, I can't see you, but I hope you were on the video and others could see you. Anyways, I'll move on. So yesterday also I opened the session by introducing the organization. For those who are joining us today, I'll do the same. United States India Educational Foundation is a binational body, which is its head office is based out of Delhi, but it was an organization that was established in 1950.
Excuse us.
I request everybody to be on mute, please.
Mute, please. Mute, please. Dr. Pedratea and Soumya, could you please be on mute? Avanti. Dr. Pedratea, could you please mute everybody, please?
Sir.
Dr. Ravindranath, you're on mute. Actually, we can't hear you. I hope everybody can see me and hear me. Okay, I think I'll continue with the presentation. Okay, so this was, okay, I'll have to go back to the previous slide. So USIF, or United States India Educational Foundation, as I was mentioning, is the binational body. This is an organization that's supported by both the Indian and American governments, established in 1950. So we celebrated our 70 years last year. The four key areas or domains in which we work are: first, the administration of Fulbright, Nehru, and other Fulbright fellowships, both for Indian citizens and American citizens. And that's why USIF is also the Fulbright Commission in India. And this is the presentation that we'll be covering today related to the Fulbright, Nehru, and other Fulbright fellowships only for the Indian citizens. As a result of the Fulbright exchange programs, there is a lot of dialogue that happens among the communities. So we also help promote those dialogues through various activities throughout the year. Education USA is another program that USIF administers. This is designed to provide advising services to students who are interested in pursuing their higher education in the United States. It can be at any level, bachelor's, master's, PhD. Education USA is a program that's supported by the US Department of State. And finally, the fourth activity that USIF supports and carries throughout the year is to serve as a resource to foster linkages between Indian and American institutions of higher education. So what we will be doing today is we'll be focusing on the first set of activity, which is the Fulbright, Nehru, and other Fulbright fellowships. A little background on the Fulbright programs. Senator William Fulbright was the brainchild behind the Fulbright programs, and in his name, the programs were titled Fulbright. The idea behind Fulbright programs is to increase mutual understanding between the people of the United States and the people of other countries, creating this large network of academic and cultural exchange across the world, building understanding between the people. The programs were established in 1946. So this year, in fact, as you also see through the logo on the top right corner, is the 75th year of Fulbright's existence across the world. The program operates in 160 countries. India is one of the countries. And since its inception, around 400,000 scholars have received grants through the Fulbright umbrella of programs. Every year, around 8,000 grants are administered. And if you look at the Indian context, then USIF has administered already more than 20,000 fellowships. So you can see it's a large, wide network that exists across the world. You can see the sheer numbers, both in India and around the world. And once you become a Fulbrighter, you become a part of this whole community of Fulbright alumni, what we call them. And there are different benefits that you get as an alumni of the US State Department exchange grantee. There are grants that come out. You get special, grants to work on any follow-up projects after you have come back to India. There are many benefits, of being a Fulbrighter. So now let's get into the different grant offerings that are available for the Indian citizens. What you see on the left and right side of the screen are the complete list of grants that are available. And every year, there are slight changes. This is based on the last cycle of grants, which is currently closed, but we do have grants opening very soon, early next year, generally by end of January or February, first or second week, we open the Fulbright grant. So it's not very far away. And it will be good for all of you to know what kind of grants are available and then accordingly consider applying for one of them when the programs open up. If you see on the left side of the screen, the word FN or FK has been added to certain grant categories. Let me elaborate what that stands for. FN stands for Fulbright Nehru and FK stands for Fulbright Kalam. So as I said, earlier, Fulbright programs were initiated in the US but a few years ago, the Indian government started to equally fund certain grant categories. And what you see, on the left side of the screen is the grant categories which are equally funded by both Indian and American governments. And that's the reason word Nehru has been added to these programs. So there's a Fulbright Nehru Master's Fellowship, a Fulbright Nehru and Fulbright Kalam Doctoral Research Fellowship, Fulbright Nehru and Fulbright Kalam Post Doctoral Research Fellowship, and so on. The grants that you see on the right side of the screen, these are still funded only by the American government. So if you see the Humphrey Fellowship, Fulbright Foreign Language Teaching Assistant Program, and 2 teacher grants, which is the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Program for International Teachers, FDAI in short, and the Fulbright Teaching Excellence and Achievement Program, FTEA in short. We will cover very quickly each of these fellowships for you to understand which one is the right fit for you. If you have any family members, friends, your students, any accomplices, colleagues, who you think may be eligible or interested in applying for any of these grants, you can also refer them to our website or ask them to contact our office, and we'll be happy to help them out in considering what grant category is most suitable for them. In general, before we move on to the specific categories, we would like to share what are the prerequisites in general for the Fulbright applicants. You have to be an Indian national. We're talking about the grants for the Indian citizens. You have to have a high level of academic and professional achievement, a proficiency in English language. You will be going to a dominantly English-speaking country. So that level of English proficiency in speaking, in writing, understanding, is very, very important. If you're employed, then your application has to be routed through your employer. There are letters that you have to submit from your employer because you'll be away from your work for a certain number of months or maybe even a year. You should not be applying for this grant if you're holding or applying for a permanent residency, that is a green card in the United States. If a preference is always given to candidates who do not have very extensive recent experience in the US. For somebody who just completed their PhD in the US or a postdoctoral fellowship in the US may not be given as high a preference as somebody who does not have that kind of an exposure. So these are some of the general prerequisites for the Fulbright grants. Let's move on now to talk about each of the specific grant categories, starting with the Fulbright Nehru Master's Fellowship. I'm very sure that a lot of people who are joining us today are not eligible for this one. But if you have any students, or people who may be eligible, please refer them. This is designed for highly motivated individuals who have demonstrated leadership qualities. They've already completed a bachelor's degree, which is US equivalent bachelor's degree, and have at least 3 years of work experience. So it's not something for a fresh graduate, but for somebody who has already completed a US equivalent bachelor's degree and have a 3 years of professional work experience, and they're committed to come back to India and contribute to the community. This grant covers up to 2 years of completion of a master's program in the US with a cap of $80,000 funding. The fields of studies are limited. For the master's fellowship, the ones that you see on your screen on the left side, these are the fields of studies that are eligible for the application. So of course, engineering is not there. I know there are a lot of undergraduate students, but there is of course a big push for the social sciences, as you see. I know per se anthropology is not there, but if there are, anthropology students who have completed and are working in the field for more than 3 years or 3 years, they can see if there is an overlap in one of the fields of studies that's listed here, and they want to apply for that program. Now moving on to the next set of the Fulbright Nehru grant categories, and these 3 have been put together. This is the doctoral research, postdoctoral research, and academic and professional excellence fellowship. These have been put together into one umbrella because the fields of study for these are same. And this is the 2022-23 fields of study. There are always slight changes that might be made every year to this list. So we carefully look at the list next year when the programs open. But if you see, anthropology is one of the fields. It's on the left side of the screen. If you see, the second in the list is anthropology. Of course, if you see, there are a lot of, we all know that research is interdisciplinary. So if there are, if you think your research area or the project for which you're applying to the US for this particular grant, it relates more to another field, suppose public policy, public health, sociology, women and gender studies, whatever, of any of the fields which are listed, education policy maybe or planning, you can just decide history. You can just see, whichever field you think is the closest to the research area that you're proposing to do in your research, but definitely anthropology is there. And you all being from the field, you can consider applying definitely. Moving on to the first of the 3 sets, which is the Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Research Fellowship. This is for scholars who are already registered for a PhD program at an Indian institution. So all the current PhD students at the university or students who are joining us from other places, if you are already enrolled for a PhD program, but there are certain timelines you should have enrolled in your PhD program on or before the November of previous year. So for next year, suppose 2023, if you 2022, if you will be applying, then you should have enrolled in your PhD program on or before November of 2021. This program is for a duration of 6 to 9 months, and what it allows a PhD student, who's a current PhD student to do is take a part of their dissertation work, pursue it in the US as part of the Fulbright grant, and then come back and include that research in their PhD dissertation and then do their final defense. So you should not be applying when you're too early on in your PhD, because by then you don't have enough idea of what needs to be done maybe in your dissertation, and not very late, because then you won't have enough time to include that research into your PhD dissertation. In those circumstances, you can think of another fellowship, which is the next one we're going to talk about, postdoctoral. But the deadline for this particular grant, the doctoral research fellowship, is generally around July. Again, you have to look at the deadlines for the next cycle whenever they're announced. The next one is I'm sorry, my slides actually moved too fast. Okay. Not why it's not moving. I'm pressing the page up button. Okay. Fulbright Nehru Postdoctoral Research Fellowship. This is designed for young faculty and researchers who already have a PhD or a doctorate in medicine degree in the last around 4 years. The timelines are very specific, and when the programs are announced, you will see those timelines. The duration of this one is longer. You can go for a postdoctoral fellowship for 8 to 24 months. And the deadline is also a little later in the year, which is September, around September. So it's a very good fellowship for the ones who are looking for a postdoctoral fellowship, but the PhD or the doctorate of medicine degree should have been accomplished within the last 4 years. Timelines again will be mentioned next year. Now coming on to the more senior faculty and researchers, the Fulbright Nehru Academic and Professional Excellence Fellowship. This is for to do either teaching or research, or a combination of teaching and research at an American institution. You should ideally have already at least 5 years of work experience as a faculty or researcher, and you're allowed to either go for one single duration of 4 to 9 months, or break down your grant into 2 pieces or 2 segments, in which case it is called a flex award of 4 to 6 months each segment. If you're going for a research grant, only then the flex award can be applied to. If you're going for a teaching grant, then you have to stick to one single duration of 4 to 9 months. The deadlines with this one is also around July every year. But again, I'm emphasizing that it may change the deadlines, so look closely when the programs are announced next year. Now coming to the next 3 set of grants, which is the Fulbright Kalam Doctoral Research Fellowship, Postdoctoral Research Fellowship, and Academic and Professional Excellence Fellowship. Again, why are they combined? Because of the fields of study. So Fulbright Kalam is a climate fellowship. That means if you're working in the field of climate, that is anything which is related to either energy studies, earth sciences, geology, environmental sciences, renewable energy, smart cities, agriculture, public policy, environmental engineering, disaster resilient infrastructure, then, or it could be another field, but your subject area should be related to climate, then you can consider applying to the Fulbright Kalam Climate Fellowships. Other criteria that we mentioned for the Fulbright Nehru Doctoral, Postdoctoral, and Academic Professional Excellence also exactly apply here. The only difference is at the deadline. The deadline for all Fulbright Kalam Climate Fellowships is generally around September. Please take note that we do get this question a lot. Can you apply for both? Not really. You have to choose between either Fulbright Nehru or Fulbright Kalam, whichever you think, in terms of the field of study, relates closest to the research area that you're proposing to do under the Fulbright Fellowships. So that's the Kalam Climate Fellowships. The next set is the Fulbright Nehru International Education Administrator Seminar, and then the Visiting Chair Program. This is a very interesting grant, the International Education Administrator Seminar, in short called the IEAS program. This is designed for the mid and senior level faculty and administrators from Indian institutions who get the opportunity to go for 2 week exchange, just 2 weeks exchange program to experience firsthand the higher education system in the United States. We've lot of vice chancellors, directors, deans, in different roles who have gone to this program. The picture that you see in the backdrop is from the 2019 program, which happened just before the pandemic kicked in. And this application for this one is generally around October. So if you are in an institution or even in the other university, if you are in a position where you think you would like to consider applying to this program, please do so. But of course, all due permissions have to be taken from your institution. The visiting chair programs, the Fulbright and the visiting chair programs, these come and go. So last year, in the last cycle, there were 2 programs that were announced. This particular program is designed for faculty, researchers, and professionals to teach and conduct research in a certain field of study in the US. So last year, there were 2 visiting chair programs that were announced, one at the Emory University in the field of civil and human rights, and another one at the University of Massachusetts Amherst in the field of public policy. But we don't know if these will be announced next year or not. But these are mostly for faculty and researchers who already have a PhD degree. They have published their work and have at least 5 years of work experience. And it allows you to go to the US for 4 months to do teaching and research, and in one of the specified universities for the program. Now coming to the right side of the grant categories, which are the Hubert Humphrey, and then we will talk about the other programs. There are 2 teacher programs. We may skip talking about it, but we'll just give you a brief of it. So Hubert Humphrey Fellowship, this is for young and mid-career professionals, policymakers, planners, administrators, and managers who might be working either in the private sector or the public sector, or even NGOs who already have a master's or a 4-year professional degree, and they want to pursue a non-degree 10-month program in the United States. The fields of studies are again pre-specified, the one that you see on the screen. Don't worry, you don't have to take note of these now because they're all information is available on our website. I will share with you the website details and also take you through our website to understand where you can find this information and how even you can apply. The deadline for this particular program is around June. So in case you have, any of your students, past students who may be eligible or interested, you can promote them to apply for the Hubert Humphrey Fellowships. Moving on, okay, this is a problem. I don't know why my slides are moving in an opposite direction. The Fulbright Foreign Language Teaching Assistant Program is more for young and early career educators or somebody who's training to become an English trainer or teacher. So if you're pursuing a master's in English or a related field, not per se just only English, or a PhD in English, or you're a young faculty or trainer in English, then this is the program. This allows for an exchange to go to the US and for 9 months be a teaching assistant for either Hindi or Urdu. Last year, till a year before, we also had Bangla in the list, but last year that was taken out for certain reasons. It may be introduced next year, but it's a very interesting program, and generally the deadline for this one is in August. We do have teacher programs. That means teachers for school programs, teachers of school. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but just as per your understanding that we do have 2 programs currently, which is still not open, but they may be opening soon, where school teachers can go for an exchange program to the United States to get experience of the school education and the school systems there. So this is one program, the Distinguished Awards in Teaching Programs for International Teachers, and there's another one called Teaching Excellence and Achievement Program, TEA. I wouldn't get into the details of it because this is not the right audience. So these are all the grant offerings, and as I said, there are slight changes that may happen in the next cycle. So whenever the programs are announced, you can always visit our website, follow us on social media pages, or attend one of these information sessions, which we will conduct once the programs are announced. Looking at the numbers, for you to get a feeling of what, is the number of people or applications that are received. So this is from the last cycle, 2021-22. There were around 1,700 applications that were received for the 6 prominent programs that we had. out of which 1,500, around 1,500 were for 4 Fulbright Nehru Fellowship programs that you just heard about. So if you see, the majority of applications that we received are for the Fulbright Nehru set of grant categories. Around 110 nominees, which is a 7% success rate, were selected of these applications. And if you look at the percentage of women, 44% of the Fulbright Nehru nominees were women. So I really encourage all women who are sitting today in the session to consider applying. We did have some underrepresentation from certain states, but Andhra Pradesh is not in the list. If you look at this current cycle, which is ongoing, around 115 Fulbright Nehru grants were awarded. We will see in the next cycle, the numbers will be almost similar, but here and there it goes up and down, depends on the budget and who's applying and for what duration. If you look at the placements, where were the Fulbrighters going? They went across the board in the US. The blue dots and the yellow dots showcase where they went. But of course, the yellow dots is where the most of the highest numbers went. So Massachusetts, California, New York, they were the very popular states, which is, as you know, there are more connections in those states that Indians have in the US. But of course, they were spread out across the board in the US. If you look at where the Fulbrighters were coming from in the map of India, they were coming from across all regions in the country. Andhra Pradesh did have a representation, but I think it would be really nice if we can have a yellow dot representation from Andhra Pradesh because yellow dot represents the highest number of applications. So do consider applying so that we can have more scholars from Andhra Pradesh who get the Fulbright grants. If you look at the backdrop, we put that intention in there because we always conduct a pre-departure orientation program before the scholars, the grantees leave for United States. And this is a picture from the last in-person pre-departure orientation that happened in Kolkata in June 2019. So these are all the grantees from that cycle who were brought together in Kolkata for a 2-day, 1.5-day orientation program with the Fulbright Commission staff and the other authorities to understand their grant benefits and different kind of things related to the academics, research, social and cultural environment in the US. So they're well prepared before they reach the United States. Nowadays, we are conducting these virtually, but this was the in-person event, the last in-person pre-departure orientation from 2019. I would like to, spend a few minutes talking about certain important aspects related to the Fulbright grants, because we do get these questions a lot, and I think it is important for you all to understand what you're getting into. So in terms of the grant benefits, once you receive the Fulbright grant, you will be getting a monthly stipend along with the health insurance coverage, which is the accident and sickness program for exchanges, which is as per the guidelines of the US government. You will get a round-trip economy class air travel from your home city to the US institution where you will be pursuing your Fulbright grant. In case of the master's program, as I shared earlier, the tuition fee with a cap of 80,000 US dollars is covered. Also, if there are any additional allowances or like a modest affiliation fee that the US institution may require, then on a case-by-case basis, Fulbright Commission may approve those kind of fees. Another question that we get a lot is about why Fulbright programs take so long for the review process. So I would like to share with you all our timeline and review process, which further establishes the authenticity of the review process. So as you saw, the program, and as I mentioned, they're generally announced around February every year, and this is the example from last year. The application deadlines, as you just saw from the presentations, are somewhere between May and October. And once you submit your applications, they go through a screening process by subject matter experts. USIF has a huge database of these experts from different subject areas. As you know, research is very specific. So according to the field of study that you specify in your application, a subject matter is assigned to screen your application, and this happens between June and December. And then based on the recommendations of these screening committees, an interview happens of the shortlisted candidates, generally between August and February. These used to be in-person interviews, which happened in New Delhi in our head office, but nowadays these are virtual interviews. These interviews have a representative from the MHRD, the Government of India, and a representative from the US Embassy, along with a few subject matter experts. USIF staff, the Fulbright office staff do sit in these committees. However, we are non-voting members on the applications. Once the interviews have happened, the recommended applications are then forwarded to the partner agencies of Fulbright office in the US for final placements. And this happens between October and February. Finally, the grant is issued generally around May and between May and January, this happens. And finally, as you know, you do need a US visa to start or go to the US. So J1 is the exchange visa that is processed, and USIF offices do provide support for J1 visa processing for the Fulbright applicants. So that happens around July, and then finally the scholar departs. And as I mentioned, there is a pre-departure orientation also that happens before the scholars depart, either in person, as was the case pre-pandemic, or virtually, as is the case currently. So this is, the whole of the review process, and you saw, like how intense the process is. So that takes time, and that's why we are next cycle when it comes, it's going to be actually a 2023-24 cycle. So it's very hard to imagine that when you're sitting in 2022, you're talking about the 23-24 cycle. In terms of the applications, now that you have understood what are the different grant categories, what are the benefits, how the reviews are going to happen, and if you do know what grant category fits you well and consider applying, then you can just use the online application form. Submitted by the application deadline. There are no considerations that happen there. So deadlines are very strict. I will show you in just a little bit where you can look up for these application links. Right now, as I said, all our programs are closed, but when the new cycle opens, you can visit our website and apply for these programs. A few resources to keep handy and few things to keep in mind when you're preparing your application. It is very important that you read the application instructions very carefully that are available on the USIF website. I will show you those where they're available in just a minute. Also, we do conduct mentoring programs around April and May with the alumni of the Fulbright programs and with the Fulbright commission staff. So do attend these mentoring programs. These have been going on virtually right now. Very resourceful. You can ask your questions. It's always better if you start preparing your applications by then, because then you'll know what kind of questions to ask. You can also reach out yourself to the Fulbright alumni, Indian Fulbright alumni. On the USI website, we have a current fellows section where you can identify the fellows by the program of study and also fields of study. Once you know who may be the right mentor for you, you can write an email to us, Pranita and myself, and we will be happy to check with them their availability and willingness to be your mentor. And then accordingly, if they agree, we will put you in touch with them and the mentorship process can start. So it's really resourceful. We have found many grantees doing that kind of a thing, asking for a mentor from the Fulbright alumni pool and then getting a lot of benefits out of it. You can also always visit USIF Facebook and Twitter pages to know more about the announcements that are forthcoming related to the Fulbright programs. If you are still not inspired to apply for the Fulbright programs based on the presentation today, we do have wonderful videos on YouTube. You can look for Indian Fulbrighters, Ambassadors of Change, and we hope that it will get you motivated to apply further for the Fulbright programs. Finally, this is not something which is required, but something which is suggested by the Fulbright office, that it's always better if you can identify and correspond with a potential host institution in the United States where you would like to go and work for your Fulbright related project beforehand, and then add a letter of support from the US host institution with your application. That not only strengthens your application, but also shows to the committee, your proactiveness and that you have a place, already. So it kind of is a very nice thing, but I would still say it is not required. It's something suggested. And, conferences like today that you're all attending, these are very good places to get connected with the American counterparts who are working in your field of study to understand what area of research they're pursuing, or if they have a teaching requirement where you can be a plug, and accordingly you can consider them as a host institution for your Fulbright grant. So these are some of the resources that you can keep in mind while you're preparing your application. And I think I'm going to come to the final slide now before I share the contact information about some of the selection criteria that you should keep in mind, because this will help you in preparing your application. So some of the selection criteria are, of course, the academic credentials and your professional ability. If you're a researcher, then your research publication, the grants that you've received, and conference presentations, those kind of things count. The merit of the proposed Fulbright project is very, very important. How impactful the project is, what is going to be the benefit of it, what is the need for you to conduct this particular research in the United States. You're already sitting in a great institution in India, then why is it that it's important for you to go to the US to pursue this particular research? So highlight that need clearly in your research proposal. Also, what is the outcome, potential impact, and benefit of the work that you're planning to pursue? As an individual, how motivated you are, how serious you are for the purpose, how matured you are, what are your leadership capabilities, how culturally adaptable you are. It is very important because you will be in the United States for a short duration of maybe 9 months, a year. So how easily you can assimilate into the culture very quickly, start interacting with them, start sharing about your own work, your own culture with the United States, with the counterparts in the US. And the next point again re-emphasizes that point. If you remember, when I was talking about the Fulbright programs, that Fulbright is not only an academic exchange, it's in fact a academic and cultural exchange program. So as an ambassador of India, how you can contribute to the to be a cultural ambassador from India in the United States beyond the academic work that you're pursuing, and then how you can bring a piece of the culture of US back to India. And Indian culture is so rich. There are many aspects to the culture that we can talk about. It's music, it's dance, it's arts, food. There are many aspects. So what is it that you can take along with US culture? I did not mention, and I know it was in the introduction yesterday, I myself was a PhD student in the US. I went to Penn State for my PhD, and I do remember cooking invariably every month some kind of Indian food, Indian curries for the students, not only from the US, but students, as you know, in the US campuses, the students from across the world come. And so it was so nice to be sharing a part of our culture through food with them. We used to have henna, like the mehendi, thing once a year maybe, and they would love it. So it's just a small part, small contribution that we make, but we help them understand our culture through small little things that we can do for them. Your communication skills are very important, as I also emphasized earlier, because you should be able to share your thoughts, your ideas with them, not only for the culture side, but also your academic side, right? You may be co-writing papers with them, so your writing skills are very important. So communication skills become very important. And then finally, your commitment to national service and community service. So once you come back, how do you contribute towards the development of the country, development of your local communities, development of your field of study? So these are some of the things that you should keep in mind when you're preparing your application, which will strengthen your application further for the review committee. And that's where I would like to end. In the final two slides, I'm just going to share the contact information. As I said, our office is centrally located in Delhi, and the building that you see in the backdrop is the iconic Fulbright House, which is where the Delhi office is located. And then we have 4 branch offices in Chennai, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Hyderabad. And the Hyderabad office, as you know, we are speaking from here, both Pranita and myself, and we're located at the US Consulate General in Hyderabad. The website I'll show you just in a minute, and then the email ID that you see in the center bottom screen is the generic email ID for India programs, that is the India Fulbright programs. You can write an email to them, or you can always contact Pranita and myself. This is the phone number, which invariably Pranita is going to take a call on that number when you call. And then we have the email ID. I've also mentioned Pranita and my email ID, so you can reach out to us anytime you have a question related to the Fulbright programs. And we are happy to, assist you now or when you've started your application. If you're confused about what program of study is a fit for you, and whether this is the right cycle for your application, or if you have another question. So this is what it is. And let me just very quickly take you through the USIF website to the places that I was mentioning, because that will help you understand Are you able to see the website or no? Because I think I shared, probably not. Just let me share the, the right screen there.
It's
Okay, now I think it should be visible. So this is, the USEIF website, as I was mentioning about. If you scroll down, you will see the different sections that I was talking about. So Fulbright Fellowships, you see this is the place. You go there and you will see on the left side, fellowships for Indian citizens, fellowships for American citizens. Under the Indian citizens, you will see all the grant categories that we've talked about. So you can suppose go to the Fulbright Nehru Fellowships and you'll see all the grants that we've talked about. Click on anything, suppose the doctoral fellowship in case we have students there. So if you see all the fields of study are listed, affiliation, grant benefits, eligibility requirements, always closely look at them. And this is which is the how to apply section. The link to application, and this is for the last cycle, so don't use this. When the new cycle opens up, new link will be added there. So use that. Also the application instructions for each grant category under its own respective web page. The application instructions are uploaded. So download these. It's a PDF file that will open up. Keep it handy with yourself. Go through it very carefully before you start working on your application. There are also certain other documents that you see are mentioned here, like the annexures, the employment endorsement form, the deadlines. Everything is mentioned very clearly on the website. Okay. Now, if you remember, I also mentioned to you about the current fellows, like if you want to get some mentoring from any of our past Fulbright alumni, what you can do is once you open the USEIF website, there is going to be the current fellows section where if you see the Indian fellows, these are the Indian grantees who you can approach. For the last 3 cycles have been mentioned here. You can select your field of study, if you see anthropology, and also within anthropology, if you see there are some demarcations made here of geoarchaeology and anthropology for South Asia. So you can just choose the respective field and then choose if you want a home institution, yes. If not, you can just look up for scholars in the field of anthropology and just click here and you'll see, in the last cycle, we had 2 scholars, one from Christ University, Bangalore, and another from Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Delhi. So you can just, check their profile, see if they're the right fit for you, and let us know, and we'll be happy to check with them and put you in touch with them. And I think that's where, I would like to, stop the screen sharing. Pranita, if I've missed anything you want to add, please go ahead. And otherwise, we can open for questions and answers.
Thank you, Monica. That was a wonderful presentation. I think we'll take the questions and take it from there.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pranita.
That's fantastic. We thank you both, Dr. Monica Setia and Ms. Pranita Hemanth. We are very thankful for the solid presentation. It's fantastic, So let's open the session for any questions. I do have, a few questions I will ask at the end, So now, please go ahead and ask questions, It's a fantastic program, guys. I have been in the US since 1986. Every day is something new. You would be meeting people. It's really highly rewarding experience. You guys would love it, talking to people about our careers, our religion, the differences, between the states. And it's really, it's a fantastic program. I would strongly encourage, our students, postdoctoral fellows, predoctoral fellows, and faculty members to utilize, this extraordinary opportunity. And we should be very thankful to you all, at the Fulbright Commission, in India, working all the people that are contributing, to this cause. Thank you. Let's
Thank
have
you so
some.
much, Dr. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Oh, okay, please go ahead.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
I am Dr. Gandikot Ananda.
Yes.
Hello. The Fulbright scholarship have been making to educating them, both the ladies. And first of all, I thank to them.
Yeah.
And yes, in the previous last session also I raised one question regarding that the TOEFL or IELT, what is the minimum scoring marks? Then that day also it is not answered, but they said the next session it will be answered. And my second question is that, sir, in Hyderabad there are 2 centers for this USFL. Since the Andhra Pradesh is divided into Telangana and Andhra, why can't it be one center at Andhra Pradesh present, either Vijayawada or Visakhapatnam?
So I just want to respond to the second question. I'll refer to Pranita to answer the first question related to TOEFL for Fulbright. So we only have one USIF center, sir, in the whole of 3 states of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Odisha. That's based at the US Consulate. USIF has only one center. What you're talking about is an Education USA center. Fulbright office, there is only one across the through states, which is USIF. Education USA, there is another center in Hyderabad, but that was a project which was initiated by the US Consulate in Hyderabad. So I would suggest, whenever you next get in touch with the, one of the members of the US Consulate, maybe, ask them that question, because in terms of USIF, we only have one office. But we will pass on that, your suggestion to them, and that you have requested this. We will definitely pass it on to them. But that is beyond our control, because USIF has only one office, which is based at the USIF. Pranita, do you want to answer the question related to TOEFL for the Fulbright?
Sure. So, sir, Dr. Anandaru, there are not all programs require you to take TOEFL. So, like, for example, Fulbright Nehru Masters and maybe Fulbright Nehru Doctoral Programs will require that. But if you're applying for academic and professional excellence and other programs, it's not required.
So it's only for the student programs.
There will not be any minimum scoring.
So what we do is we give a TOEFL voucher, but please understand that if you've only cleared the interview and you're in the final, bit, then yes, we give a voucher. By then, please be assured that you must already be good, because of which you have cleared the interview. So you shouldn't be worrying about that.
Yeah, Dr. There is a small clarification here. There are 2 things that we are talking about. Yesterday's talk by Dr. Setia on PhD programs available in the US, that is completely different from the Fulbright.
Correct.
But as Ms. Pranita Hemanth said, for Fulbright programs, there are no specific requirements. However, for the PhD programs, you will have to go to the website of a particular university and look for their requirements, TOEFL minimum, GRE minimum, and any other course requirements. You will have to go to their graduate programs website and have a look at it and look at the requirements. For example, some universities would expect you to have a minimum of 515 TOEFL. If I am wrong, please correct me, Dr. Setia and Ms. Hemanth. It depends. Some universities minimum is 550, for example, TOEFL. So like that, I would strongly recommend, if somebody is applying for any specific program, please go to their website and look for the minimum, scores and a given university would be expecting.
Right, Professor Ravindra, thank you for clarifying on that. Absolutely, like you rightly said, Fulbright and PhD program applications, they're 2 separate things that we're talking about here. So minimum requirements, as I also answered yesterday, minimum requirement for TOEFL scores for PhD applications depends on the university or the program of study, and you can look at it at the website of the university. For Fulbright, it's only the student programs, the 2 student programs that we have, which is the master's and the doctoral. There is a requirement for TOEFL, but not at all at the time of application, like Pranita clarified. Also for the 2 school teacher programs, we do request the teachers at certain point to again give the TOEFL exam, or maybe for the Fulbright language teaching assistant program, but not at all at the time of application. It's only when your application reaches a certain stage and the Fulbright office requests you, they will provide you a voucher to administer the TOEFL score. But PhD programs are completely different.
Sir, you're on mute.
So, Soumyaji, one more question for me.
Please go ahead, sir. Professor Ravindra, you're on mute.
Please go ahead, sir. You're on mute. Dr. Ananda, you're on mute.
Meanwhile, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please, Dr. Raj, go ahead.
The Fulbright scholarship is offering faculty. See, instead of offering a faculty, once you offer the faculty, then they leave the university or wherever they teach, they will come for a Fulbright scholarship. That will be loss of the where he is serving his field. Instead of giving a Fulbright scholarship faculty, it could be given, as I asked previous last day, for a senior citizen who has retired and they are willing to have some research to their research can be useful for making.
Sir, you went on mute.
Sir, you went on mute, you know. Yeah. Would you like to answer that question? You know, I think, you know, with my little knowledge, I would like to say one thing, Dr. Ananda. You know, I was looking at some of the slides. Even for some programs, people from private organizations are eligible. I think, you know, for example, if there is a program on religious, you know, somebody, you know, can come from a private organization and apply for the specific program. And if I am wrong, please correct me, you know, Ms. Hemanth and Dr. Setia, you know, you will have to look at the instructions clearly. And some of the programs do allow people from private organizations to apply.
Rita, do you want to answer?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So, Dr. Ananda, that was a good question. One is not just faculty, anybody can apply as a freelancer as well. Of course, there are certain rules, the guidelines which one needs to follow. If you go to the website, you can see that. But what I'd like to answer to you is, yes, there are others who can apply as well as the faculty. So it's open, especially if you look at the Hubert Humphrey Fellowship. You will see that not everybody is need to be associated to a certain organization. So the beauty of this program is you go on the program, you learn about it, and you bring that value back to your own organization or institution. So, Monica, if you'd like to add to that.
Absolutely, yes. You know what Pranita has said, and I think I elaborated it yesterday also, that it's about how you plan to utilize that knowledge, that learning from the exchange program after coming back. If you have a plan, even after being retired, to continue your work after coming back, and how, if you have a plan, clear plan, and you can portray it to the committee, absolutely you can apply. There is nobody, you know, who stops you from applying for the Fulbright grants if you've retired. Only that you should have a very clear plan on how you want to utilize your experience after coming back. The learning for the field, development of the field, for the development of any institution that you're going to be affiliated with, or general public, the society. I think it's nation, you know, that's what we're talking about here. So I hope that clarifies. Yes.
Thanks for Soumya. Learning is a continuous process, it never ends.
Right, absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely,
Yes.
sir. And that's why there is no age limit to apply for this program.
Exactly.
We just look at what is it that you bring back to the community, how many years you can give back once you go on this program. So, yeah.
Yes, that's fantastic. You know, it's a really, there are so many programs, you know. Dr. Ananda, I think you should apply.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely,
Yes, sir.
Please consider applying. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Dr. Raj Khatula, you have a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can't hear you properly.
You can probably type in your question.
I didn't follow your presentation.
We can't hear you, Raj Khatula. I know. Would it be possible for you to type your question in the chat box? We are unable to hear you.
Oh. I think I'll try. I'll type. Yeah.
You can try now after
Yeah,
maybe
you can
go
try
off
now
the
in
video
which-
mode. Go the video mode. You can close your video and then start speaking.
Am I clear now?
Yeah.
My
We
voice
can
is
hear
clear?
you. Yes.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir. I hear you.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
My question was, I'm actually interested in knowing about Fulbright in relation with the postdoc. And are there any specific area of research that Fulbright actually supports for? And then what is the load of applications, if there are any specializations, and what is the success of those applications, especially from India?
Anita, you want to take it? I can share, open the screen, the slides that I shared earlier.
Sure. Actually, Monica covered all of your questions by showing the kind of fields that were open the last cycle. So
yeah, sorry, I was late to join.
No problem. We'll be happy to take your question. So yes, there are fields that are open every cycle. So what you need to do is just go to the program when it opens. And like Monica had mentioned earlier, we will probably open the cycle end of January or beginning of February. And once that opens, you can go to the postdoctoral fellowship and see the fields that are open. And under that field, and Monica had beautifully explained how we can, you can also apply if it's a cross-disciplinary approach also is open. So you may not find the, let's say there is a field that you're working on, but you do not find it in the open fields. But if you in some way can show that, it is associated to a particular field, we are very open to that approach. And you talked about the success of the application. So this is for Indian fellows who will apply. And we can say that it is a very good competition. So if you apply, you will find that everybody who is really good in your field is going to apply. And yes, you will have to give a really good application and show your commitment to the research. Monica, would you like to add to that, please?
All right. So, sir, if you see, I've put on the screen which specifies the fields of study. These were for last cycle. There could be slight changes, of course, in the next cycle in the fields. But as you see, anthropology is one of the fields which is listed. And like Pranita said, I talked about the interdisciplinary aspect of research. So you can definitely pick up another field if your research projects that you're applying to is going to overlap with more with another field than with anthropology. So absolutely, that option is available. But these are the fields which were eligible in the last cycle. And I just want to open also, the slide where we showed the statistics in terms of the success rate. So let me just give me 1 second.
We call it the Stanford rate, actually.
Okay. So this is the success rate. These are the number of, we don't have them by field of study. We do have overall the total number of applications. This was for the last cycle. So this is, you can see, easily read the statistics there. I'll just let this slide be on. Until then, we can take another question.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Dr. Sirajuddin, please go ahead.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
I thought yesterday I raised a question, so I thought that I should give a chance to the other people who have got a lot of queries. But anyway, because maybe as an afterthought, I thought that because Dr. Ananda was asking, so it is a little bit of a similar type. Mine is, of course, slightly different. Ma'am, I just want to know whether is there any restriction for the repeat scholars? For example, I am a very old hand. I applied long time back. Do you have, because I also missed in the very initial part of it, I joined your lecture little late. So sorry for that. So if I am asking a question which you have already covered in that thing, is there any restriction that repeated scholars should not apply, or is there any something of sort of thing? And second thing is, my daughter is already there in the University of California, Berkeley. She has got a scholarship from the, this is the second question. She has got a scholarship from the university side. Is there any restriction for those who have already got a scholarship to not to apply for the Fulbright scholarship? These are my two small questions, queries, please. If you can able to answer it, it will be great. Otherwise, I think that you must have put all this information in your website. Sorry, I will go through it if it is.
I can absolutely, we can answer that question. So since you were a scholar who went around 20 years ago, you can absolutely apply again. We do have scholars who have gone twice on the Fulbright fellowships. There is a minimum number of years that you have to wait before you apply again if you were already granted the fellowship, but you have already crossed that limit. So that is not an issue at all. You can go ahead and submit your application for whichever program you think is now the right fit for you. So there is no constraint. Regarding your daughter, since she's already pursuing a program there, I'm not sure what fellowship she wants to apply for, what grant. And second, as I mentioned also in one of the earlier slides, that one of the general prerequisites for Fulbright fellowships is that a preference is given to someone who did not have a very recent extensive exposure to in the United States. So since she's already pursuing a program there, she would not be giving a very high preference because she already went through the program there, right? But for you, since you went many years ago, it's absolutely okay. Please do consider applying again for the right fellowship that you think is now a good fit for you. Pranita, do you want to add anything?
Monica, I was just thinking if the second question was more pertaining to the EdUSA question, is because it was related to scholarships he was asking. I'm not sure. I just thought.
In terms of your daughter, Dr. Sirajuddin, what was your, what were you wanting to know in terms of the fellowships or scholarships?
She is pursuing public policy there in Goldman School in Berkeley campus. And she has got a scholarship from the university side. That is, the university is offering that, and it is a state university, I believe, that is University of California, Berkeley campus. So whether she is there any kind of restriction that you should not get additional funding besides the scholarship, Fulbright scholarship, if you are, or the Fulbright Nehru or other scholarship, if you are, which you are offering.
Right, but that's what I'm thinking, that what kind of Fulbright fellowships will she apply for, right? Because if she's already studying there, by the time she applies for, suppose, Fulbright Nehru Masters, if you're thinking about that, then by the time she applies, the program will kick in only in 2023. By that time, she would be close to completing her master's program, right? So it will not be of any benefit for her to apply for that Fulbright fellowships, for the Fulbright Nehru Masters.
Fantastic. I have two questions. Thank you, sir, Dr. Sirajuddin. Thank you so much. I have two questions. Given the fact that these fellowships are, they are short term compared to other kind of fellowships, given that time limitation, is it possible for any of the fellowship holders to extend their time? Is it possible? That is the first question. See, for example, let us say that there's a program and you would allow them only to stay there for 6 months. Unfortunately, due to some health issues or something else, if the candidate would like to extend the stay for a few more additional months, is it possible?
Pranita, do you want to answer?
So Yes, Monica. So that's the reason why a research proposal has to be given as to why they are going for those 3 months or 4 months or 6 months. And they will have to stick to that proposal, and the grant is accordingly released. But if it's a health issue, I think it will be looked at differently then. Monica,
Okay.
you want to answer?
So, yes, Dr. Ravi. So in case, any such issues arise, and as sometimes research is also unpredictable, especially for people who are going for more lab experiments kind of thing. It is possible that your experiments did not work, your research, your outcome, the results were not as expected. So there are many kind of issues that may crop up, health issues, family issues. But these are all on case-by-case basis. All due permissions have to be taken from IIE, from the IIE's International Institute of Education, the Fulbright office. So this can be done, but very extreme cases it has happened. So if the scholar goes through some such issue, they should definitely write in advance and in detail to the Fulbright office, and then based on whether the permission is granted by the Fulbright office, not only in India but also from the Fulbright board. It may be done, but nobody can guarantee that that can happen, because it totally depends on the board how they look at it.
And also regarding the master's program and the PhD program, pre-doctoral, not postdoctoral.
Right.
So I think, some kind of understanding is expected between the two, the advisor, here in India, for example, as well as, to be advisor in the United States, right? There must be some kind of coordination. Otherwise, that experience, would be helpful to the candidate, right? Is that correct?
Right, absolutely. And that's the reason, as I mentioned, if you remember, when the student is working on the dissertation proposal, at that stage, it is very important that they understand and built in the piece or project that they want to pursue in the US. And that will all happen only once they have discussed it with their advisor in India.
Exactly.
And then when we go to the US, when they're pursuing that research, that part of research in the US, it is very important that if they have any questions or something comes up which is not as per the earlier plan, that they always are in touch with their Indian advisor, PhD advisor. So we always rely. This is not something which Fulbright is a part of, but it is something which is well understood, and it is expected that the students themselves, the PhD students themselves, will be doing and being that conduit and informing both their PhD advisor in India and their advisor for the Fulbright program in the US about what is happening, if they're facing any issues, what is the progression they have made in terms of the research work that they were expected to do in the US. But absolutely, you're right, John, that there has to be some kind of understanding or communication that has to happen between the Indian and the American counterpart when it comes to the advisory roles.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a fantastic session.
I have a question.
Yes.
Generally, what I understand, the universities offer postdoctoral fellowships for the specific area of research prescribed by the university authorities or department authorities. But whereas if an Indian has his own research interest, which is not specified by the US universities, but is there any kind of the foundation or university or any other agency that can really provide the grant or kind of support, financial support in Fulbright, whatever? Can that kind of interest areas, the Indian research interest areas, in particularly in anthropology, if it is not covered in the specified areas prescribed by the universities of US, so in that case, what can be done, and is there any possibility to explore that kind of thing?
Thank you so much I think that's a very good question. So, there are different ways postdoctoral fellowships happen. One is when the US universities advertise for any kind of open positions they have, either at the university level or the lab or the department level. So that's one thing. But programs like Fulbright, what they support, is you yourself exploring the US university arena, and we have Dr. Ravi here, Dr. Ravindra. He himself is a faculty there, and we have, as you know, large number of faculty who are in the United States at US institutions who conduct a lot of research related to Indian topics also, right? So it's up to you, like when you are reading the journal articles, when you're attending the conferences like these, you get connected to such faculty, make your networks with such faculty, and then once you know that they will be willing to host you for something like Fulbright fellowships, you apply to the Fulbright fellowship here, get a letter of support from them, add it to your application, and there you have solved the problem, right? Because you wanted to work in a research area which is of your interest. You found this faculty or person, and it doesn't need to be just the Indian faculty. There are a lot of American faculty who are working in research areas that are relevant to the Indian problems, Indian issues, Indian ground level issues. So I think it's just, how you can find those people, and, it's easy to find out. You read the journal articles, there are authors, you can identify where are these authors based, which universities, which departments. You can identify the email ID from the US University website, write emails to them. Conferences are one place. If you have any advisors or any senior faculty, like Dr. Ravindra, we had Dr. Dean yesterday, those are the people who can help you build up that network. You can share with them your research interest or your research area, and they would know from their network the individuals, the faculty in the US who are working in those specific areas. So those are the ways you can build up that network. And then, as I said, they're very willing to host Fulbright scholars. So check with them, email them, they can provide you a letter of invitation. You apply for Fulbright on the site, put that letter into your application, and there you have solved all the issues with you, right? So that's how I would suggest you should approach people.
It's a fantastic answer. Dr. Pedrataya.
Yes, sir.
One day, Dr. Ananda Gaddikota was asking about her advisor in Canada. And I went ahead and looked for her, and she's now retired, but she's very much attached to the Department of Anthropology, doing a lot of work, something related to the Tamil culture. Okay. So you name it, we have it in the United States. There are so many faculty that are really engaged with various aspects of our Indian cultural and biological experience. Okay. So it will be amazing, nowadays, given the advances in the media, it will be very easy, to find a person that is concentrating on a topic of interest for you also. Okay. It's in front of the computer and looking for for compatibility. Okay.
So, for example, if I receive a supporting letter from the concerned professor, then this Fulbright scholarship is possible, or what? I don't know.
Well, it's still competitive to get it. That's
It's
just letter of
competition.
support is a part of your application. Just remember that. You have to write a research project, and all the components put together is something which the screening committee looks at. They just don't look at the letter of support, but that adds on to your application, that gives heavier weightage to your application.
Okay, excellent. Thank
It's all
you.
competition, my dear friend.
It's competitive, yes, absolutely.
Okay. So the time is running out, and we have another session. And I request the chair to summarize.
First of all, let us really sincerely thank and give a big clap, to Dr.Monica Setia and Ms.Priyanka, Hemanth. They have done an extraordinary job. Thank you, ma'am. And also, we sincerely thank Dr. Sirajuddin. Yesterday also, he talked about his experiences, when he was doing his Fulbright, I was there in the same lab, and we both published a paper. Structure
Very
of the Chentus in Andhra Pradesh. Yes, ma'am. He was a postdoctoral fellow. I was a graduate student at the time, and I had the privilege of publishing a paper with him, for which I am very thankful. And also, I thank, the Anthropological Applications for Humankind organization, and also the American Corner. Please convey our sincere thanks to Mr. Joe Christopher, ma'am. And he was very instrumental in us all Thank you so much for everything. you know.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Ravindra. On behalf of USIF, I really thank all of you. I know that it is a busy conference, but you still accommodated Dr. Joe's request and plugged in the 2 sessions. So it has been a wonderful time, both for myself, Pranita, and yesterday also for Vireet to be a part of these sessions. And we love interacting with the audience, with yourself. We had only exchanged emails, so this was really wonderful. We really thank the American Corner, Andhra University, and the conference organizers because it's been a wonderful experience to go through it. So really thankful from all of us here.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Monica, Madam, because we are busy and we could not organize much more people. So maybe in future, I think we can do more productive way.
Yeah, it would be really helpful if you can share with us the number of people who were in the conference room yesterday and today, because we just need it for the reporting purposes. We know from the Zoom who people are logged in, number of people, but if you can share the number of people in the conference room, because that we are not able to count or they're not visible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
From both yesterday and today, just separately, if you can share, that would be really helpful.
Oh yeah, okay.
And please convey our greetings to my alma mater and my colleagues, Anthropology, Department of Anthropology and Andhra University.
Thank you so
Sure,
much.
sir. Sure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Pleasure talking to you all. Thank you. Dr. Sirajuddin, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.